So today we're going to talk about food plots and when not to plant a food plot. We're here on a property in Upper Michigan. We used to hunt this back in the early 2000s, and where I'm standing was one of my favorite food plots back in 2005, 2006. I used to sit right in this big balsam right back here. You can see it's kind of, the limbs are taken off. That's where we used to have an 18-foot ladder stand. I'm standing in the middle of a probably, I'm going to say it's about a third of an acre food plot that used to be located in the middle of big woods here in Upper Michigan. I've got probably behind the camera 400 yards to the nearest road. To the east, I'm looking north right now. To the east, we probably got 300 yards to a highway. To the west, we've got 180 yards to 200 yards to a neighbor's cabin in their land. And then to the south of me, there's 80 acres of solid, well, it used to be solid cedar swamp and hardwoods, but it's been logged 10 years ago. The regen's coming, but it's not like it used to be. But anyway, there's at least 200 yards of cover all around this area. Not a great way to get in and out of here to hunt. What we used to do was actually the very first year I was hunting this food plot, we would park at the highway and I'd walk down near a quarter mile through deer bedding and everything to get to this deer stand that was in this tree. Well, I started to understand about access and that kind of stuff. Well, we would park at the neighbor's cabin and we'd come in from the west, okay? But there really isn't a good wind, a safe wind to hunt here. And typically, it would be, you'd see a bunch of deer the first few nights you sat, and then as you got closer to November, there was nights I would sit back here and I wouldn't see a deer, and I never quite understood it until, well, then you start looking at access and wind direction and where the deer are bedding, and the deer were bedding all around this food plot. And another thing we learned, I would actually walk through another food plot to get here. And one of the things I learned is you can't have like brassicas here, and we'd have clovers over there, because there was like 2 nights I remember hunting, and 150 yards away, this was brassicas and grains. I was hunting, and then 150 yards away, we had a lush, beautiful clover plot. That was the very first year we started developing clover for Northwoods whitetails. We were testing it on that food plot. Well, we had those big old Moultrie cameras, that had the 6-volt battery. Well, I'd go pull the SD card, and the 2 nights I'm sitting in this tree stand right here, there's 2 8-point bucks sitting on our clover plot, stuffing their face full of clover. And it kind of dawned on me, we need to have everything in all these food plots. But the reason for today's video is we want to talk about when you should and when you shouldn't plant a food plot. Now, I think food plots are the #1 way to attract and hold white-tailed deer on your property. People talk about rut and hunting during the rut. Well, what are you doing? You're hunting bucks. The bucks are looking for does. What's going to hold does on your property? Food, especially evening food. So if I can't plant food on a property, I'm really not interested in hunting it. Especially up here in Upper Michigan, it's so vast woods that when we start to plant food plots, we attract and hold a lot of deer. This particular property, in case in point, hasn't had food on it in 15 years. Last year, we put our 3-strip system in, and we saw some of the best bucks I've seen in 2023 was right on this property. And it only is going to get better this year because we're expanding the food plots and we're hiding the food plots better. We're getting switchgrass that's going to be on its 2nd year. Our food plot screen is going to be in place. But what I'm not going to do is plant a food plot where I'm standing. Okay, and I'm going to take the phone off the stand and I'm going to kind of walk around and show you what we're dealing with. But we're going to turn this into a bedding area. Okay, it's kind of a weedy mess. You can see behind me some of the popples that are coming. It was logged, like I said, 8 to 10 years ago. It's starting to get some woody browse in here and regeneration. There's a lot of grass. It looks like it's kind of sandy soil, not very thick black soil. But what we're going to do is till this whole thing, smooth it out, and then start spraying clethodim. We're going to put strips of switchgrass in here just to kind of break it up a little bit. But this is going to become a bedding area for the deer because we want all our food where we can get in and out. We can hunt it if we want. We want to utilize that food. Now, if I was to use this as a food plot, and I'll show you that in a little bit, there's one spot that you could probably get in and out of here, but it'd have to be rifle season. It's going to be about a 200-yard shot. But you probably would see deer here all day long. But honestly, I'm not going to use this as a food plot. It's not part of the strategy of the land. So that's just what I wanted to talk about quick today. It's getting cold out. It's actually starting to snow up here. The day started out in the 50s and sunny, and now the snow is starting to kick up. So it looks like we're getting a little moisture tonight. We still got some clover seed to put down on one of our food plots. But I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. And again, this is why we don't want to plant this food plot here. We want to use it closer to the spots that we could get in and out without being undetected. Okay, yeah, you can see that's the tree we used to sit in right there. And you can see right up here, it's cleared out, and there was a ladder stand right there. And we would actually come in from the west over there. We used to call this the L plot because it looks like an L. Real original. But anyway, you can see it's not been planted in a long time. We've got some autumn olive coming in. We've got a lot of the popple shoots coming in. But that's the thing, you know, so on the north wind, all my wind is blowing back there. If we've got a south wind, you know, it's blowing out to the food plot, and that's looking east. It's solid cedar swamp and hardwoods. But now one of the things we're going to do, because you can look north now, and this property, the property line is right up here by these, you can see where the cutting stopped. Let's see right here. And then the neighbor to the north had it cut, and now it's really open. And there's islands, and actually these islands are full of deer beds. There's an island way back there. But if I was to come in here and put a food plot in, it would probably be a box blind down on that island. And right now I'm probably 150 yards. It's a long shot. But you can see it's high ground, and then it drops down into some swamp. We're going to line this whole thing with food plot screen and switchgrass, and then we're just going to put some vertical layers of switchgrass in here. Soil looks a little bit sandy, a little rocky. You know, probably typical UP soil, low 6, high 5s in the pH, you know, less than 2 organic matter. But I think our RC Tecumseh will do good in here. Otherwise, we might use the big rock. We'll do a soil test first. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to come in here. We might cut all these balls or these popple back just to encourage some more woody growth. But this is going to become, this just used to be one of my favorite spots to sit until we kind of figured stuff out. But this is going to become a bedding area, and then the food is 100 yards that way, all along to the southeast. So this is a good spot not to put a food plot. And you can see how thick it is all in here. But yeah, we're not going to put a food plot in here. We're going to turn this into bedding. So interesting concept, Food Plot Seed Company talking about not planting a food plot. Well, there was a good reason for it. You know, I'm going to give you the layout of the property here. And we've got a major highway on the east side, old 2-track on the south side, and then you saw the north side that's now been clear cut. And this piece is probably about 70 acres. Neighbor's got some property right here, and he's got a cabin right about here. And that plot was right about here. Now we call it the L plot, but it's actually looks like a J, but a backwards L. And that's kind of where that food plot was. So we would park down here. Now, there's a food plot system here now, and it was there many years ago, but there was another one here. Okay, and this is the travel. We would walk in. That's our travel, okay? And once I started understanding about, you know, wind direction, access, I'd start to come in from the neighbors, let us park there and walk in here. That's about a 150-yard walk, and then we've got another about 200 yards to the highway. And this all used to be about 80 acres of big woods. Well, actually about 60 acres, and they log half of it. And that's what you saw today. You know, we've got some islands of bedding up here. And I think those are going to be really helpful in the future. But you can understand why this should never be a food plot again, at least a huntable food plot. And it took us quite some time to figure out that we were really destroying this part of this parcel with all our movement. I mean, I'd have to walk through these food plots with deer in them. The first 2 years we hunted this bow hunted this stand, I'd have to walk through these food plots, and I would watch bumping deer, but didn't quite understand how destructive that was to this parcel. So you folks that are just starting out, man, and you're getting a channel like this to explain this to you, that's very helpful. I wish I had something like this back in 2004 and 2005. But as much as I loved hunting this spot, it'll never be hunted again. So we're going to turn this into bedding, woody browse, some switchgrass. We're going to try to hide this because this is a lot higher than the rest of this property This is very low except for these islands. We're going to wrap that and turn that into a good bedding area. We're going to have a little seclusion food plot here and try to get that movement. Everything comes to here and works its way south for the night, but we're going to have a travel corridor here, and we're going to have movement along here. And if I want to hunt either this little seclusion plot or the movement between the food plots, I can just walk down the edge of the highway and bop into a stand 30 yards off a very busy highway. So we're going to take this out of production, not going to plant it. We're going to utilize it, but we're not going to utilize it as nighttime food. So this parcel has proved that food plots are one of the best things you can do to hold, attract, and hopefully harvest some white-tailed deer. There hasn't been food on this in about, I don't know, 12 years, maybe 13 years. Last year we had our 3-strip system in this main food plot, and the deer that we saw for Upper Michigan were really nice deer, a lot of them too. We saw 5 different what I would consider shooters for the guys that hunt this property. Myself personally, I saw 2 different deer on this parcel on camera that I would want to shoot, and it was all because of those food plots. These guys were hunting this property for the last 2 years and they didn't see anything like this that we saw last year on camera, and I think it's only going to get better. So that being said, we definitely want some food plots on this property, strategically located. We can get in, get out, and not disturb the deer, especially up here. You blow up half the parcel trying to get to that spot. So hopefully this helped you folks. Hopefully you're learning something. We want food plots on our property, but make sure they're in the right spots and we're not doing harm to the property by trying to hunt them. So folks, if you like this and you haven't already, please subscribe. We're hearing from a lot of people. This is kind of a breath of fresh air. There's no sponsors. We're not a big YouTube star channel. We're not trying to just push BS that some of these people are pushing nowadays. One day they're talking about this, then the next day they're talking about that, or this sponsor's telling them to do this or that. We don't do that here, folks. I think this is a breath of fresh air in what's become YouTube in the hunting industry, unfortunately. And if you've got any comments, folks, by all means, ask them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped you, and we'll see you in a few days.